What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Kena Bridge of Spirits 1 year later. Now, obviously, the anniversary update is out. I live streamed it, I believe, actually on this channel a little while ago, a few days ago when the update first came out, and I've played through it on my own. I beat it. I participated in some of the challenges and trials that the game added on, and I just kind of want to re-talk about it, kind of like a re-review a year later. A lot of the things, in fact, all of the things, have probably stayed exactly the same. I've just kind of laser focused, on some of them, in that I really believe this game is fantastic. I think this is such a good game from a lot of different angles. It's not just the visuals, right? Visuals immediately got me way back when they first announced this thing. I talked about it on both of these channels for years, or however long between when they announced it to when it released, and it always looked good. The lighting, how a lot of things pop in this game, it looks like a Pixar movie just as a game, right? But honestly, there's more to this game that makes it very good than just, the visuals. I mean, every cutscene that this game has is like on a completely different level, right? It really, like, you're almost drawn to it. Even my wife, who kind of sits next to me when I play some of these games, and she'll be doing her own thing. I even noticed, she would look specifically when the cutscenes were playing, because you can't help it, right? But also, the game, I think the gameplay itself is incredibly, incredibly good. This was the main thing. I remember saying it over and over and over again leading into this game last year. How is the gameplay going to be? We see it. I guess we saw it a little bit, right? But you don't really know until you have the controller in your hands and you're moving around. How does it feel to play this game? Because visuals can only get you so far. And to be honest, visuals only do get you so far in this game. The rest of it is really up to the enemy design, the balancing, the levels themselves, the different environments. But like the fighting itself is a huge, huge part. And the gameplay is so good. It's so good. This is a challenging game. And it's a game that I remember struggling with certain bosses last year when playing it. This year, I struggled in kind of individual, like, different sections of the game here and there. I also do believe I'm playing it on a harder difficulty than I played it on last year. But the game is really rewarding where it feels tough. And when you beat an area, like, you use precision, you use the weapons in the right way, you've really kind of studied how these enemies act. And remember, with the anniversary update, some of these enemies have, like, new attacks or new, like, kind of layers, let's say, in general. It's not even like you're fighting the same exact style or same way that you were a year ago, because there's new things you have to watch out for. But I really do appreciate that just in general about the update, that you're playing it over again. I've forgotten a lot of the smaller things in this game, but then even the things I do remember are slightly tweaked because of these updates, so they definitely help. But the gameplay of this game is, in my opinion, so underrated because it's so rock solid. It's stiff in a way, like in a good way, very Legend of Zelda-y, right? That's kind of like what we talked about last year. The biggest, and really the only weakness I have with this game is Kena herself. I really like the voice actress. I love her look. I love her fighting style. I love, the little backstory we get. But the biggest issue with this game is, ironically, her, where they just don't have enough for her to say and for her to go through in this game. It's if you're going through this game, especially, I guess, considering I've already played it once, a lot of the puzzles I rifled through this time. Like, they weren't even, I didn't have to think about them. Not to necessarily say they're not challenging, but you know what you have to do, so they're just faster to do. Some of the bosses, I am shocked. In fact, I actually, like, jump up. I say to my wife, like, oh my God, I actually beat it. Because I remember certain bosses in this game taking me 20 plus attempts the first time. I beat a boss later on in this game first try, whereas a year ago it took me 20 plus tries, and I couldn't believe, like, I felt really good about myself. And it's rewarding. It's rewarding to beat these bosses, and that's very special. And it's special when the gameplay holds up, right? Because, like, when you complete these things successfully, like, hey, I'm giving it my all. I've really kind of mastered the game mechanics. The game knows the game works pretty fluidly. The game really, from start to finish, from, again, all departments, visuals you would expect, because that's kind of the main draw of this game. but the gameplay I think is super underrated. The story is pretty solid. It is a short game, especially if you go through and you know what you're doing. You could beat this game probably in 5, 6, maybe 7 hours. Actually, 5 hours is probably a little too low. I think it took me around 7, so I'd say 7 is probably a good estimate. Maybe it takes you more, maybe it takes you less, depending on difficulties, but it just feels very good. And then again, ironically, Kena is the worst part of it, and not because she's bad, but because when you're saying all positive things, and then you say, wow, what did they give her to, like, you know, experience and to go through some sort of character arc? Well, the issue is she doesn't talk much, right? She doesn't have many lines, so there's only so much you can do with a character like that. A lot of this game is just spent fighting and learning really about the spirits, like the spirits that you're kind of redeeming or saving. That's most of this game's story, is talking about them and how they got to the point that they're at, and then where they're at right now as Kena kind of goes into their lives. It's not really about her until the last hour. The last hour and a half is a little bit more about her. So look, this game is absolutely worth it. I'm so happy I went back. I think you forget a lot of the just how maybe some of the smaller details. Like, you remember the visuals, but do you really? You know what I mean? You watch those cutscenes again, you say, I can't actually believe how good the lighting is here, or how good these visuals look, or the music in this game is insanely good. It's something I constantly forget to talk about with a lot of games, is the soundtrack. The music in this game is awesome, but I forget these things, and I also forgot how challenging some of it was, and that you need to be kind of laser focused on these enemies, not just the bosses. That's where you really need to tune in, but really for all the enemies. Like, you need to be, you know, in the moment. You can't be messing around. You got to focus, I guess, on higher difficulties. But I forgot that. I forgot that the game was kind of like that. So absolutely worth it. A year later, I'm really glad I went back in. Now I've played it twice. I don't think I'm going to make it a yearly thing, but obviously because the anniversary update got me back in this time, but it's totally worth, you know, someone's time. I know some people thought it was maybe a little boring, or the story or whatever. The story and her as a character are definitely the weakest parts, but I think the gameplay and visuals hold it up and make it very good. And the puzzles are pretty cool. They're pretty diverse. They don't really get repetitive. You're always kind of doing somewhat different things. I think this is an overall spectacular game. It was one of my favorite games of last year. And if I were to rate it with the games that came out this year, I'd even put it pretty high as well. I think it's better than a lot of games that came out this year. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you all on the next one.